Welcome to Starfleet Boy. Audience, please attend carefully. There are lots of spoilers for Star Trek in general. Okay, we are recording the video, Sean.
I love how you have to tell me legally.
I think Skype, doesn't Skype tell you something? Starfleet's recording or something like that?
Yes, just be careful. You're on camera.
It says be careful. Alright, 1, 2,
You're being
3.
watched.
1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. Alright. And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we are focused on Star Trek The Next Generation's awesome, classic episode, Lower Decks. And I'm joined by Sean. We were going to be joined by the Doctor, but he's having technical difficulties that are beyond our comprehension.
We had to eject the core.
We had to
for the moment.
Core.
We had to jettison the pod.
What do I look like on your screen? Do I look full, or am I in a slither thing?
You're as full as you can be.
So can you see the L cars display? Because it won't be. I don't think it'll show up on the final video, which is sad. It's just for you.
I can see it all. I can see System 47 there.
I used to have that screensaver, and I'm afraid to install it on my computer now because it might.
It seems like it's going dead though, because you have.
There, I had to touch it. I have to figure out where the screensaver, like the display settings, are now. That'll be. That's gonna be a distraction. All right, we're back. It's been a while. When was the last? We talked at the Picard finale. Was that the last thing we did together?
Probably, yeah. I think so.
Yeah,
and it's certainly been that long. Like it.
You're right.
There's been longer times. There's been droughts.
Wow. There's been Starfleet Boy droughts. That's a great way to put it. So I will let you do the episode summary today because this is your episode. I don't know. Am I wrong about this?
I don't know. Is it my episode?
I think it's your episode.
The episode opens with Riker and Troy doing the classic crew evaluations. But instead of spending too much time on them, the episode starts to concentrate on 4 other younger officers, or let's say lower ranking officers, over at another table. The
people, in fact, who they're doing crew assessments about.
Exactly, the very people being evaluated. We have Nosogawa, which is a recurring character in TNG. We have that Bajoran girl that I don't remember her name. Ensign Sita, which was part of the Wesley Crusher whole situation in that one episode.
Which is a cool way to make TNG. It's it's a pseudo tie-in, from seasons past. So, well, it is a tie-in, but it makes TNG a little richer now at this point, which is interesting.
It's nice to see that, like, she's got a career and what have you. The same way Picard did this with so they were mentioning, right, like Picard's old roommate and how she got to become a captain, etc. Anyway, the other 2 members of this
Captain Batanitas or Batanitas or I can't even say it right. Whoops. All right, we're abandoning this.
This is not a good idea. Kill it.
Yeah, it's not. Kill it. There we go.
Kill it. The 2 others. I feel like there's a Vulcan that I feel like there's a Vulcan in Voyager, and I feel like it's the same one. I may be mistaken, but I feel like he's the same one from Voyager.
I
And then
think
the
he is actually the same, not the
and-
same character though, but I believe it's the same actor.
And the other fourth lower-ranking lower decks officer is basically Superman. He looks like he could be a very good Clark Kent.
I wrote a note that he's your. He has the potential to be your. His grandfather is potentially your grandson.
Oh, do you think?
I mean, it could be.
I mean, if
your family
if for
stays in
some
Canada.
reason, if for some reason Henry Cavill couldn't act anymore, I would be inclined to accept this man as the new Witcher.
Oh, really?
I think he's fine.
This thing's still going at it. I gotta stop. It's not. Gonna
Anyway,
stop.
I don't really know
This
how
is
to
so
make.
professional.
I don't really know how to do a summary on this episode, to be honest. But I mean, this episode basically just focuses on these characters and on like their I'm gonna say less important positions on the ship. So we get to see, like, instead of seeing the actual mission briefings and everything that's going on, we see everything from their perspective. So basically everything's happening behind closed doors, and we just follow them in their various positions on the bridge, in sickbay, in engineering. And so as the episode unfolds, we don't really know what the plot is. We don't really know what's going on. But the Enterprise has basically intercepted or retrieved a Cardassian operative, which is in fact working for the Federation, and he's been essentially recruited by the Federation or something, or he's decided to kind of betray his people because of the war that's going on and the Bajoran occupation, and he's against that, and he's decided to share information with the Federation and with Starfleet so that something can be done to help these poor people. And then there's a mission to kind of send him back home, but they want to send him back home in an unsuspecting manner, so they give him a shuttle pod that's been kind of fired at, and they give him a fake Bajoran prisoner, which they are set to retrieve after the fact. I don't know, before we get to the conclusion, let's just talk about each of their various story points. Nurse Ogawa is being promoted by...
What kind of like style of episode is this? Like, what would you call it?
It's very unique.
It's unique, right? Like, because there's
The
so
thing
many
is,
stories going on. It's not just about the lower decks characters. It also gives you more insight into like the upper deck characters, you know. And it also, I feel like it's a world building episode, because
it really
is. I never thought about it, but it's like you realize there's command, there's ops, engineering. I mean, it's always been there in Star Trek, but like you really like feel it in this episode. Like
you kind of understand the dynamics.
Yeah.
You know, of how they work. The thing is, like, if I were to say, like, what good Star Trek episode should I watch, Lower Decks wouldn't come to mind, in the sense that it's a great Star Trek episode. It's just like it's not First Contact, like the episode First Contact, or it's not Darmok or the Pegasus, which are kind of very Star Trek in the sense that either they have I don't know, like a societal problem to deal with, or they have a kind of like an alien problem or a technological problem to deal with, and then so you have to find a solution to it, and it's problem solving, and there's maybe a moral dilemma. But this isn't like that at all. The dynamic is completely different. It's really just you're following the lives of. It's like Seinfeld. you're following the lives of.
That because there's a very big comedic element in this episode, but it's also very serious at the same time. At the end, of course, you realize, what's going on, and how we lose Ensign Sito in the line of duty. But throughout the episode, it's actually very funny. There's all the gags, like there's Dr. Crusher trying to like figure out a way to tell Nurse Ogawa that she saw Andrew, her fiance, with another woman,
we get all these plot lines. We get all these plot lines where so Beverly Crusher's kind of invested in the life of Nurse Ogawa.
Riker can't stand Laval.
He can't stand him.
But it's like because
Worf is like impassionate about seeing
Sito.
Sito rise the ranks, right?
Yeah.
He's so happy about that.
Then you have the whole Picard thing where that was a big bomb at the end.
Oh
when
my
he's
goodness.
like, I know, and he's like, he's like, Ensign Sito, like, the reason you're on the Enterprise, I get choked up just saying it. It's like, the reason you're on the freaking Enterprise is because I asked for you, I requested you, and then you just like, like, that was like kind of a
I feel like
and then you have
Geordi is
Guinan.
a strange character.
Right. You have Geordi's character in this too.
Geordi and we're like out of the episode.
We're in the discussion. We're fully in.
Okay, the recap is there's an animated show on the way called Lower Decks, and it's been inspired by this episode. Watch the animated show, and watch this episode. That's the recap.
Or watch
right?
this episode now so that you're ready.
Yeah,
for the
watch it
animated
now,
show.
and then watch it again.
That's very aggressive. You're like,
no,
you'll need to watch it 7 times before the the cartoon comes out.
Keeper of the Lower Decks gate.
Oh no! Come on.
Oh no!
I told this. I made this point last night on Drunk Space Nine that all the gates are broken. The gatekeepers
at you.
are all dead.
You're doing the crossovers and the tie-ins. Now people have to stop this and go listen to the Drunk Space Nine and then come back.
That's how it works. That's how it works. You're getting your crew evaluation. You're being tested right now, Sean.
Oh, dear
the reason
God.
you're on Starfleet, boy, is because I requested you, Sean. I requested you on this show.
I'm on Starfleet, boy, because Gary sent me.
Yes, Gary did send you. Thank you, Gary.
There you go.
Now it's awkward because now I wish Gary was here too.
He was my previous commander, and he sent me over here.
You're Ensign Sito. You flunked out of the Gary Academy. You flunked out of the Gary Academy.
Oh no!
And I had to save you. Wow, this just went downhill very fast. But anyways, you were saying
I was gonna say that Geordi is the in a way I feel like, because in the Next Generation people don't dislike people so much, like they're very respectful and there's no drama, but every time there is drama,
that's not true.
But every time there is, it's Geordi that doesn't like other people. Geordi's all like, I got a problem with Barclay, I got a problem with this Vulcan, you know what I mean? And then he's all like, he's dating holographic engineers. he's got no people skills. And then his best friend is like an android.
So sad.
So that, like, I feel like Geordi and organics don't work too well. Let's put it that way. He's a synthetics kind of person.
I would love to see Geordi again in Picard, and I hope we get like a real good kind of slice of his life, presented to us in it. I think it's interesting that like I forget where someone said that Geordi was in the comics or something, the Countdown comics, that he was at one point stationed or in charge of Utopia Planitia, and so it kind of makes sense that that's where his engineering path would lead, is like from just working on his warp core and his ship designs to like going full scale, because there's the whole design operation at Utopia Planitia that we never, there's shipbuilding going on there, but they're also designing all the future ships. In fact, he probably designed the impossible fleet that everyone hates. Poor Geordi, he got such a bad review.
It would be interesting.
It
would be a bad review because you made them all the same, Geordi. You gotta make them different. Design the same ship, but paint one of them blue. Just make them seem different. Give one like
starship. No.
red flames on the side. Make them look cool or something.
No, we're not. We're never gonna do that. Okay, that's not gonna happen. This is not Star Trek Online. This is real life. Star Trek Online is not real.
I feel like what would be interesting to explore is Geordi. Like, he's working at Utopia Planitia, but he's become kind of a cranky, crazy old person, in the sense that he lost his best friend, but he still has like a holographic version of him. Like he still goes and consults Data, but he's also got the Leo Brahms program running as well, and he's constantly consulting them. And like,
I want him to be
his right hand is like his right hand is Barclay, which isn't helping him because Barclay's kind of crazy too. And these are the two people that are
really
running
funny.
Utopia Planitia. And so all of the other officers are kind of like, oh my goodness, we have to work for these two. They're kind of nuts, but they know what they're doing. They're pulling out the best ships, although they all look the same. But
your show is terrible. I'm just telling you right now that I would not watch. There's a you finally created a Star Trek show that I would not watch. So congratulations. I only watched the pilot just to see LeVar Burton. I think he's gonna be. It's
the most controversial show.
I want him to be married to the actual Leah Brahms. That would be nice.
No, she has a husband.
Did she in the show?
Yes, I think so.
Well, he could have been like, a bad husband, or he died, and then Geordi came in.
Just straight up murder the husband. Fuck off.
No, why
Get rid of him.
Geordi wouldn't do that. You mentioned that there's no conflict, and I agree that there's not a lot of conflict. But doing this rewatch, I feel like it's kind of not true. I think there are enough examples throughout the episode to say that all of these characters have had problems with other characters. Yeah, I guess that's the thing, is that they really get along with each other very well, which is 100% true.
What I like about Star Trek, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to say this, but they don't have small issues. The issues are like basically they come down to like their ideology and how they think, because like Picard is so Starfleet that he does not comprehend how she could have done such a thing, and so like
but he wasn't. We find out at the end of this episode, we find out that he actually could relate to her in some way, and wanted to.
And ultimately, he wanted to give her a chance.
Right.
I
think this Picard.
It's
I felt like there were a lot of interesting tie-ins from the way that we see Picard in this episode to like the later depictions of Picard, which are a more complex human character rather than just like. I agree with you that like Jean-Luc is the epitome of a Starfleet commander, of a Starfleet. Like he is the poster person. He can't be a poster child anymore, but he's the poster representative. Like Rafi says, he's still on the brochure. when they're trying to recruit you into Starfleet, they still put Jean-Luc on the brochure, even though that one terrible ensign at the front desk didn't know who he was.
He wasn't invested in his job.
He'd rather be a YouTuber. He wanted to be a YouTuber.
Look at him. He has no ambition, poor man. He could have been on a starship. Nah.
Do you know what I was thinking the other day? I was wondering. I was reflecting on my life, and I was wondering, did I become Lieutenant Picard, or am I Captain Picard?
That's so harsh.
It is harsh, but that's the kind of thing I subject myself to constantly.
I think about these kind of things when every time like there's an ensign that pops up in Star Trek, but the ensign is like 55 years old or something, and you kind of think about it, and you're like, not everyone's career goes up. You know what I mean? Like I'm a pastry chef now, in like just a regular position. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'll be my own boss later. It doesn't mean that I'll be the chef or whatever. I could stay as I am for my entire career. Know what I mean?
It all depends on your ambition, some would say,
suppose.
right?
It depends on I think a lot of things. Or competence, let's say.
But then as this
Luck.
episode shows, like that actually that's a good question. Do you think if Sito had survived, she would have definitely made gotten the promotion over Sam? And so in a way he's right, don't you think, that like the promotion was given to him because she was out of the equation?
I mean,
There's that scene at the
Okay,
poker
here's the
thing
thing.
where Worf,
I think that even if she had been given that position, he would have been, like, he was good enough in the eyes of the senior staff to eventually hold a position, so he would have been promoted anyway, because there's there's over
talking
1,000
about
people on that ship.
I'm just talking about in this round of evaluations.
Oh, I don't know.
Because evaluations are happening all the time. Do you know, it's funny, do you get evaluations from your commanding officers at the shop?
Once a year we get this kind of, they fill in this form, like, what's going on, but it's more like a general form, like, they evaluate you, and then they ask you to kind of evaluate yourself, which is, I hate this thing, it's like a school thing, and then they also do, how should I put it, they also do like a general, like, how do you feel about the company, etc, etc. It's all bundled in one, and then they kind of like bundle the raise, like if you're gonna get a raise.
They don't. How does that? I wonder how that works in Starfleet, because they get credits, right? Like, people accrue credits during their time, even though there's not any currency. It's strange.
They get Federation credits that must be put on some sort of virtual bank account, I think, because if you want to go to Deep Space Nine and grab a
but if
drink
it's a post at Quarks, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's miscellaneous spending, right? Like, the big things are covered.
I think you pay for nothing while you're on the ship itself.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But
because you're in service.
It's
when you're on the ship, you're in service to Starfleet. Yeah. I'm talking about for, like, Federation citizens. Like, how does it work? Like, do you, like, okay, we talked about Chateau Picard might be a trust that they allowed to. Remember, we were like, they allowed to keep it, right? But like,
you decide to take the transporter and go and eat at Cisco's.
Yeah, I like that. I love that you did that. That's definitely where I'd go eat. So yeah, it's true.
I think it's free.
Right.
I think you just go down and you eat.
But what about where I live? Where do I live? Like, that's what I want to know. How does that happen? Like, now we can decide where we want to live. Like, depending on our income, right? Like,
I don't think it depends on your income. I think you just decide where you want to live, and I suppose it depends on availability.
So you go on a waiting, like, if you want to live in Captain Kirk's apartment in San Francisco from Star Trek 3.
But I think that's a museum.
Oh, right, but like the apartment next to it's probably the same, right? Like, that's what I'm saying, is like, if you want to live in that building, you have to. It depends on the availability of that.
I would think
space. So it's first come, first serve, you think?
Probably.
But then, is all property desirable? Like, what if where would I live then? You know, in a sense,
but then
transporters, it doesn't really matter where you live, right?
It doesn't really matter, and also you could kind of say, like, computer, give me the design, like, schematics for this apartment block, and it's like, I want the same one, but in this country. Like, you want to go to, like, fucking, what is it, Venezuela?
Yeah.
Because you like that country, or you like whatever country because it's by the sea.
Which it wouldn't be a country anymore in future.
No, it would be like a
Earth,
region, maybe.
A region, yeah, that's all it is.
Or like if you're a snow kind of person, because I like skiing. You know what I mean?
Like, Riker says he grew up in Alaska. Oh, that was a thing, right? Riker, we already knew that. But he grows up in Alaska, so Alaska still exists the name Alaska exists. Canada exists. But not the same way that we think of
names still exist. Like, I think that I would assume that in the future, all of the, like, what we call countries, they're still all there. It's just that they're not, individually governed. They're not all just countries. They're just regions. But it's like it would be easier to keep it that way. I don't know, to take care of things. Because if you have just the Earth to take care of, it's too much. Like, cut it up into pieces, and then might as well just keep the pieces that are already cut out.
We know that there's still, like, mayors and governors and that kind of position still exists, but it's just that the whole world is the country, or like not even the world, but the Federation is like many worlds. So it's not even like, you have many worlds in the Federation.
I feel like
it's a crazy concept. Imagine managing all that.
I feel like
the bureaucratic system in the future must be pretty insane.
Like, each individual must have like Federation credits or whatever, like when they leave the Federation. While they're in the Federation, I think they're fine. But I think that and we often talk about how there's no poverty, but that's in between individuals. I think the Federation itself must still have like a limited amount of resources. Like the Federation only has a certain amount of resources, and it can only
dilithium, for example,
yeah,
is a resource that is limited, and we see that in Star Trek constantly.
And every time they accept like a new planet or whatever, like if you accept a new member into the Federation, you've basically agreed that these guys are societally stable or whatever, but maybe they do have certain issues on their planet, like instabilities, the geological instability, that kind of stuff. You need to invest resources in helping them fix that, because you want all of your planets to, to be safe and to be nice. But then you have a limited amount of resources, so maybe you can't get to each problem. Like imagine you've got 1 million Federation citizens, you've got hundreds of billions, right? But imagine like hundreds of thousands or whatever, they go out there and they do trade deals with the Ferengi, and for some reason they get captured by the Ferengi. You have to go and save your Federation citizen, but that might take resources. Anyway,
well,
it's
the other
completely
thing I
off
thought
topic.
about is that, well, it is kind of on topic, because again, this episode kind of opens the like curtain, or like, peels the curtain back a little bit more.
Yeah, world builds.
It world builds, and that made me think of another thing, is like the Enterprise. After so we get with this with the Cardassian character, we get reminded that there's a lot of conflict going on between the Federation and Cardassia, and in specific, there's the whole subplot with the Maquis and the Bajorans and all that, and it happened. Obviously, Deep Space Nine is all about that, but then you see like little hints of it here. Like we've had enough Cardassians that we know this is going on, but the Enterprise, like the next episode, is the one where Data is like, damaged, and the radiation episode, To Thine Own Self, and then after that we have the Enterprise is still on an exploration mission, which is interesting that the flagship is being sent out to do exploring still, while there's this whole like, there's like battle. There's got to be like lots of like, battle activity happening, but the Enterprise is not really a part of that until like this.
That's not its mission, is it?
No, it's not its mission, but what I thought was interesting is that this is kind of like paralleling to what Starfleet did to Pike during the Klingon War, and they mention it in a way. They're like, because while the Klingon thing was happening, like Pike's still out there doing his 5-year mission, right? Like way out there, exploring a different tangent of space away from the front lines of the battle. And it reminded me of that because it's a similar parallel. There could be a whole other show. In fact, the Discovery the Discovery 2 is probably out there, space hopping. Maybe that program still exists and Picard and crew don't even know about it, but they're still using like, the mycelial network or some sort of crazy, technology to like do things that we don't even know about because we're following the Enterprise. And I think that's what's interesting about these like little glimpses. It justifies some other things that maybe were confusing or different in other Star Treks. That's like, you're like, I don't know what that expression was. All I saw was your eyes shift. You're like, okay. So this is Starfleet for tangent that I didn't want to go on.
No, I agree.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I agree. I think this episode was fun for that. It doesn't expand on everything that necessarily we're talking about, but it does expand on many things, and it's great to see. It's like just taking the waiter, right? Just him.
Oh yeah, I missed Guinan,
great.
by the way.
I miss Guinan, but I think it was bitter. I think it was bitter that he was there because it's like
he was cool. Yeah,
Guinan is kind of too formal, and I feel like Guinan, as a regular crew member, you and I would maybe be not intimidated by Guinan, but she's a very wise.
She's Guinan. She's very wise.
This guy is he's more casual. And he's playing the poker games, but I love how he's playing the poker games with both. He doesn't care. Hey, Will.
Well, he's like, what's interesting is this is the part where we don't get this really again, I don't think. I'm trying to remember how it's handled on Voyager, but like he's a true civilian, a Federation character that's not an officer, and that's why he can freely like go from like hanging out with the ensigns to going to hang out with all the commanders. Like it doesn't matter. They're just pals. Like it's.
I
kind of
think that's what I would do. I would find myself a job on like the Enterprise.
You'd be the pastry chef.
I accept the risks and the dangers, right? But I would
Right.
I would accept a job on like a
Like
ship
Mott.
like that. Yeah.
Mott is another example of that, and like I mean, you have your best pals with not best pals, but your pals with Captain Picard, and oftentimes he's like talking strategy, with Jean-Luc. It's kind of interesting, like when you realize that like the concept here, which was interesting, and again, Starfleet seems to abandon this concept, or maybe it just continues to go on, but like again, the focus shift from like explorative activities till now everything's about like battling the enemy, right? Like so Star Trek itself shifted. We stopped following the ship that like is exploring, and we started following the ships that are always in the battle, right? Like the Discovery is always in the battle, like it's always on the I know what you're
Sigh.
It is a deep sigh, because this is more fun in my opinion, is like
Yes.
this kind of thing.
It's also more unique. It has more personality because everything else that we follow, every other show, is about the battle. Nothing's about the exploration. Even Star Trek Online is an entire game about a million battles that happen.
Yeah, everyone wants.
They dig
it
up
seems
every
like the
single
battle's the only
bloody
thing.
race that's existed in Star Trek and make them mean and then make them fight you.
But how cool would it be? Do you think as many people would play if Star Trek Online was about like actually like cataloging, going on away missions and like discovering new
In the
things?
defense of Star Trek Online,
Right.
perhaps a game solely based about exploration wouldn't be very good.
Can you do that, by the way? Can you not battle in Star Trek Online? Can you like
I don't
choose
know,
that
but
path?
there's a Star Trek board game. Like the Star Trek, I forget what it is, but there's a Star Trek board game which is like, from what I understand, like each game can last for hours and hours and hours, because ultimately you have goals like to defeat your enemy or whatever. So you'll be the Klingon Empire, I'll be the Federation or whatever, but you don't necessarily need to engage your enemy at any point. So you could, like, your turns can just be like, I explore this, I go this way, and then it can be just like both people explore for hours and hours and hours, and you accumulate resources, and then you've got to and then you just don't fight. So I guess it depends on what your mood is. I would probably blow you up.
I wonder also if the reason why Star Trek hasn't shifted is because humanity, or at least in like the parts of the world that we live, I feel like there's been a war. It's not the same as like World War II, but there's been a war on the planet since I was born. Like it hasn't really stopped, and I think we're not exploring. What else is there to explore? I feel like the next things that are truly uncharted are outer space. Like we haven't even left to go to Mars or anything like that. And I feel like Star Trek focuses on. Well, yeah, Sequest is a great show about that. I only remember the first or second season, but anyways, the thing that I thought about here was like, it's interesting because the other thing was, I feel like up until recently, Starfleet has always felt like a more of a they were always taking a defensive posture, like we never strike first, blah blah blah, like that kind of thing. And at one point, this is like, I remember there was kind of like a big deal made about preemptive strikes in wars, or like in conflicts, and like the United States many years ago, it's like been 20 years now, I think, was one of the first countries to do a preemptive strike, when we had always taken a defensive posture before. Like we were always like, oh well, we'll defend our borders and things like that, but we won't actively attack unless we're being threatened. And we did a preemptive strike, which is just another way of saying like like we're gonna shoot first, right? And so that's an interesting thing, and I wonder if Star Trek isn't trying to reflect that by showing us this kind of like broken federation that is making decisions that are against its charter, which is to be a utopia, basically, you know, for all intents and purposes.
I don't think so. I don't think it's that intelligent. I think that on one hand, audiences like the battle, the spectacle of the fight, and so that's what sells, and so that's what they throw on screen. And I think that, like, if you were to take Star Trek Picard or Star Trek Discovery, which go on about how they talk about hopefulness and they talk about peace, etc., I think that rather than just show peace and kind of have us live in that peace, I think it's important to show us the contrast, like how good your characters are in contrast to, like, the situation, how dire the situation is.
Right.
Because it's easier to understand, basically. It's clearer. I think it's less thought out.
But it's still, you know, if you can kind of see it, then it means there's an accidental happenstance type thing going on there, and it could be it could be relevant. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I liked another scene, the battle simulation scene, and another connection to Discovery. It reminded me of you know, season 1 of Discovery when Lorca was doing the simulated battles over and over again, and that was kind of a cool thing. And I never paid attention to the simulated battle scene as much in this episode in my previous rewatchings, but I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like that they do that.
I like all of the, like, individual kind of smaller plot lines that are going on between, you know, Riker and that incident and what have you. But Worf is great. I really like what Worf does, awesome, yeah. Because I don't know, Worf is a peculiar character. Often people say he was more developed in Deep Space Nine and not too much in the Next Generation. But I think this episode does a good job. It shows you kind of what a mentor he is. Not to mention that
when he invents
episode,
that
he proposes
that ritual
something
or whatever.
Yeah, but
what was it that he proposed?
He proposed a plan, and Picard was like, "Yes, let's do that." And I'm like, "Excuse me."
I didn't even notice that. You're totally right. Oh my god, I totally forgot that. I should have taken a note about that. That's a good point.
I was watching this episode and I was taking notes on my phone with the notes app. Usually I have a pencil and a paper and I'm writing stuff down, and this time I was using it on my phone, and for some reason I put the phone down and it closed.
I read notes.
I know, it closed my notes app, but it didn't save it. So I have no notes. I'm going off memory.
That's good. That's really good. Like, how long ago did you see it?
I saw it yesterday, so I'm fine.
Oh, so you're fine. Yeah. Sorry. You're doing a good job. What was I going to say? Oh, I like that Worf made up that ritual to teach her a point, to kind of nudge her into realizing that maybe she gave up too soon with Picard. Like, maybe she should show who she really is, her true character, you know, if she disagrees, like, to do it. And that was interesting.
I don't understand why Worf is a bad father.
Wait, are you going back to, like, something we talked about before on this show, or are you just saying that do other people think he's a bad father? Because I
feel like we talked about this. We've addressed
this. We talked about it. I did it tongue in cheek, because I really don't think that Worf is a bad father at the end of the arc. Like, I just think that, like, his character was not treated well by the writers, because in a way I think they were trying to showcase conflicts between a single macho dad and, like, a young sensitive child, right? Like, Humbert just interrupted us in the middle of my thought about Worf. But my question is, like, Alexander just, like, this is where I think he's done a disservice. Like, Alexander just disappears. Like, what happens to I don't remember what happens to Alexander, that, like, he's not in Deep Space Nine that I can recall. Is he? Or, like, what's the deal?
Alexander goes to live with his grandparents on Earth. But then he comes back to the Enterprise and he continues to live on with Worf. We just don't see him, I think. But then eventually he comes back as like a Klingon officer in a Klingon
in DS9?
fleet.
Is it
in Deep Space
in
Nine.
DS9?
Yeah, but he's much older. There's another actor. He's much older, and he's like literally working on a Klingon ship. But he kind of sucks.
I totally forgot that. He
kind of sucks as a Klingon.
That's Worf. So Worf is a bad dad.
he's not a very successful dad, especially considering that like the only reason.
Does that like scare you? Does that scare you in some way? Like,
you know what?
As a father,
the most impactful thing that happened to Alexander when he was young is his future self coming back to help him. So he had to help himself. But Worf does a great job with Simpson, and I wonder why.
Maybe he just prefers like, you know, I don't know.
Actually, I do know.
Like...
I do know why.
Okay.
Actually, I do know why.
Why? Tell it. Enlighten us.
my theory is Worf has a specific way of doing things and of thinking, and the people that are in his kind of crew, the people that are part of his security team, think alike. You know what I mean? They have this kind of professional way of doing things, which is similar to his, and so he can relate to them, and they can relate to him. And when he explains something, they'll understand it on the same level that he's explaining it. Whereas his son is very different.
Right. His
son isn't like that at all. His son is completely different. Probably wants to do something else with his life, and so yeah.
We got a text response from Humbert, who really wanted to be on this episode. So he wrote, I tried 2 different computers. We told you he was having technical issues. He says, my thoughts are that I thought it was a good episode, but I really wished it happened earlier in the series. There could have been more potential with these characters if the show had aired this episode earlier. I 100% agree with that statement. Yeah. I think that it would have been neat, but at the same time, it would have been a very different Star Trek show, because now we would have had like a ton more characters to follow, and I think that definitely TNG focuses on the 7 main characters, you know. Like,
but these could have been a Guinan or a Barclay.
That's true.
And now and then you bring them. Voyager did a kind of an episode with like it did its own kind of lower decks.
Didn't Voyager wasn't it more successful by incorporating all these Maquis characters, and like over the time, like I feel like from what I've seen right now, Voyager definitely has a lot more reoccurring characters that are minor compared to like for example, Icheb is an example of a character who seems to like have a you know, like an arc, if you will, or whatever, you know, which other characters don't. But Sito's an example of that, and so is Nurse Ogawa. Oh, I'm boring Trek on the TV.
Not at all. Not at all.
But Nurse Ogawa and Sito are kind of like that because of the virtue of having been on earlier. I think that obviously Sam, we never see Sam again, as far as I know. I don't think we ever see him again, right? Like, do you remember seeing him again? He becomes a lieutenant, and then that's it. It's over. He actually transfers to another ship, probably.
Yeah.
But it would have been neat to see characters like Sam return later. So that's the part where it's like, even if you do it this late in the show, like, why not then incorporate them more throughout the season? And I don't think we get Sam, and I don't remember if we ever see the fellow who works at 10 Forward. What was that character's name? I can't remember right now, but
no, but I don't think we ever see him again either.
Yeah. So it is I guess a capsule episode, or a bubble, whatever they call it, a bottle episode in a way, right? Because it just takes place in this little mini micro moment in space and time on Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think it was fun. But it spawned. I have this in my notes. We got to talk about Lower Decks, the cartoon. What's the latest? What have you heard? What's the newest information? Do we have a air date or anything like that? Is it delayed because of the virus, the pandemic?
Mike McMahon says it's not delayed.
Okay.
He says they're on time, and everyone's working from home.
Wow,
So it would seem that anime
cool
is
that you
working
can
from
do
home.
that. Yeah.
And it would seem that he's doing Zoom conversations with the writing team because they're writing season 2 as we speak.
Oh wow.
Because that's how animated series work. It's funny that way. It takes so long to animate and like to actually, I suppose, is it post-produce or whatever, that you're already working
production
on the next season.
is production is all animation. It's all drawing, and it's not done the same way it used to. I wanted to be an animator when I was young, so I actually learned everything about traditional hand-drawn animation. I'm pretty good at it.
Oh wow.
but I never transitioned into digital. I can draw, like I can draw on an iPad or on a computer, but I haven't really explored how to animate. But traditional hand-drawn animation I'm pretty good at, and I practiced it privately before, and was gonna go on a it was like what happened was I wanted to work for Disney Animation, and then as I became an adult, the traditional animation studios started to close down in favor of CG or computer animation, and then I was like, bye Felicia.
I would like to point out that traditional like hand animation, like the 2D, not the 3D, I think sometimes it's very, very beautiful, and I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have any more movies coming out like that today, because although like you watch like Onward or Coco, like these Pixar movies, they're beautifully animated, they're absolutely fantastic to look at, but it would be nice to have 2D animated movies as well in this modern era, like just really nice crisp 2D animation.
I feel like
love
Lower
that.
Decks, the initial looks that we're seeing, isn't that what it kind of like?
Oh,
it
it
is
is
3D animation, but it
is.
simulates 2D
No,
animation.
it's not 3D animation. It's just 2D
Oh, it's all
animation.
2D.
It's
Oh,
straight
okay,
2D
wow.
animation. But this isn't like animated feature animation. This is more like Family Guy, The Simpsons,
Gotcha.
or Rick and Morty, right?
Huh. I did like the very first animated show that I saw from Canada. I think we talked about this. This is a deep reference, but was Reboot.
I remember that. You talked about that.
Reboot was like a good example of the first 3D type animations. Any other things from your mental notes on Lower Decks before I wrap it up?
No, that's it. That's it. We don't know anything
Did we
yet.
cover? Oh, I have something in my notes. I loved that the way Counselor Troy not cancel. I was gonna say canceled. I love how Counselor. You can see what something timely is on my mind, but I love how Counselor Troy challenged Commander Riker when she reminds him how he learned how to play poker. And I really like throughout the episode. I don't think we ever talked about this, because we focused on Worf, which is absolutely apt. But like, okay, so there was the Dr. Crusher thing, which I loved. I thought that was very humorous. But the Troy Riker thing was very cool in the sense that like Riker and Troy have a really deep kind of fundamental relationship that goes. She really challenges him in the ways that like a dear friend, or who later becomes your Imzadi, your closest friend, challenges you, and she's not shy about it. Like she just totally like she's like, I think you're really being stupid in this
situation.
In this situation, and then like you're not really considering all the things.
Didn't you sit down at the poker table with the?
So good. And those kinds of moments are so fun and funny, and I just loved it a lot.
I saw it with like for all the things that we can like or dislike about Picard. I will say that it changed my perception of the scene, because like we knew they were married. Nemesis, we got the marriage,
right?
We got the wedding, but now we know that they have lived many years together. They've suffered terrible loss. We know where they are, what they're doing, and to see this was, I don't know, it was a different perspective to it. It was just fun. It was like, oh. Yeah.
I was in such a hurry to finish
I can imagine
TNG.
that their marriage life is very much like that.
Like this, yeah, 100%. I remember I was in a hurry to finish TNG. I was hoping to get it done before Picard aired, but now like every episode of TNG we watch, isn't it interesting that it's always going to be like changed? Like from now, every episode from here to the end of this season is going to be changed somehow by Picard, which is an interesting way to look at it. So I kind of am happy that you said that. All right, it's time to rate the episode. I'll go first, as is per tradition. I would like to give this episode a 10 out of 10. To me, it just hit all the sentimental spots. It wasn't just I mean, there's more than what we just mentioned. I think it was like one thing we didn't talk about again was like how delightful, like even every major character in the show gets a moment with their underling, so to speak. And we didn't even talk about how cool it was that Tarek, I think his name is, the Vulcan character, he like accurately assesses what's going on. And we didn't even talk about like how when he's shooting the hull, we didn't even talk about how like that moment at the end where Sam's like, just tell me what's going on, what do you guys know? And they're like, we can't, we're bound by duties, and you would do the same, like this kind of thing. And Sam's like really pissed off about it because he feels left out, and the emotional impact of losing Sito and all that.
It's fun that they did that. It's fun it's fun that they took 4 officers. They got these 4 officers, but one of them knows what's going on medically. One of them knows what's going on from like the engineering or like standpoint. One of them is literally the mission, but this other friend just doesn't know. It must be so annoying to be the one that doesn't know. It's like, guys, and it's like, we can't tell you. It's like, oh my god, but it's just us, right? It's like
they're pals.
He wouldn't have gone and said it to anyone else. But they're like, we're bound by this. We can't say it.
So I loved it. I thought it was a great episode that built not just like the characters but it, like, I think this episode, as I think is evidenced in our discussion, like really gets you thinking about the world that's just beyond our daily, what we saw or what we've seen. And I think this is an important episode for that. So that's why I give it a 10, even though I do agree that it's not an episode that I necessarily will say like, oh, I gotta go watch it. But if it's I do think of watching it. I think about it a lot. I do.
This is an episode that I go and watch. It's just that, like, I don't know, like, it's not if you were to describe Star Trek to someone, this isn't the episode that would come to mind, because it is very unique in this. Like, when you say Star Trek is about exploration and it's about the scientific discoveries and it's about like kind of the diversities of the social commentary, this isn't necessarily what comes to mind straight away, right? You'll think about something like Darmok, or First Contact, but not necessarily this. First Contact, but it's definitely not the movie.
It's definitely in the pantheon of TNG episodes that deserve a 10, in my opinion. I think it's like up there. It gets to have its little pedestal in that, in that room, in that museum of the greatest TNG episodes. So that's why I gave it that rating. Oh boy.
I have quarrels, sir.
Oh!
With the fact that you have an episode like a 10 out of 10 pantheon for TNG, but not for Picard. Picard is the pantheon.
It's true.
Picard lives the pantheon.
I have to say something funny that came up again in my drunk discussion last night with special guest Heather Ray from Twitter. Heather Ray from Twitter. But there is an aspect of in the momentness, I think, that like I've admitted to this on the show too, that like there's such a personal connection to Picard, and it's because I love TNG so much that like it's hard for me to not I just give everything a 10 because I am genuinely enjoying it that much, but I acknowledge that this is probably an extreme interpretation.
So would you be open to say that all of your 10 out of 10s for Star Trek Picard are kind of like, they are both quality enjoyment but added to the nostalgia?
But the thing is that like one can argue that they were aiming at that too.
Oh no,
and
absolutely.
So then
Well,
to me,
they're
like,
either aiming at it or they're using it.
they're using it's fine with I want to be used and abused by the writers in this way. Like, this is exactly how I want to be used by the writers, and I think that they nailed it for me, and that's why it's hard to explain, because I think I'm a unique. The other day I made an absurd statement where I said that, like, I thought Picard was made specifically just for me. Like, that's why it's so perfect in my eyes. And I know that's not true. Like, no one came to me and said, Sahel, like, what would be your, like, do you like this or do you like that?
But they did all sit down. They're like, all right, so we've all listened to Starfleet Boy.
If that's happening, all I have to say is just hire me already. I'm ready to do it. I will make coffee. You know what? I'm the character. I'm the character that works at 10 Forward 100%. I'm the guy who's making your coffee. I go hang out with Alex Kurtzman, make him his coffee. I go to hang out with Patrick Stewart, and the whole time we're just talking about Star Trek. And I'm like, Alex said that he wants to do this scene, but remember in the episode with the Romulans that you did this, and Patrick will be like, "You're right." I'm the continuity keeper. No, I'm just kidding. I can't be that. But
he'll just get mad. Romulans.
I just think that, like, for me, the tens, Ruben argues that the tens will change over time and this and that. But I don't think I've ever changed my feelings to such a strong degree. Like, I can't imagine they'll go down to ones or twos. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I do bring them down, it'll be like 9s and 8s, and that's fair, I think. Like, if later on I get a more critical eye, but I do feel strongly that, like, I was paying attention as I tease a lot of people, and I feel like there's very few cracks that matter to me. Like, all the things that, like, are presented as problems are all surface level problems, and I'm just like, oh, well, I can get past that. It's not a make or break situation for me. Like, the story's so good in Picard, but we're not talking about that. You're avoiding giving your rating for Lower Decks for some reason, and I'm like a little nervous that you brought that up.
I don't know. I think it's a solid 9 for me.
Yes. I was really worried, but now I feel very because I understand what your 9s are like. So to me, like, that's a really, you may as well have given it a 10. I feel like, in my eyes, that was like as close as a 10 that you could get. There's only one or two episodes that you get.
Yeah, I gave it 10 once, but when I give a 10, it's just to please you.
Well, I'm pleased that you like to please me. That's nice. That's a good thing.
No,
when I give lower ratings, sometimes when I give lower ratings, sometimes it's to please you. So we're even. But anyways,
okay.
Go.
There you go. No, this is a very good episode. It's great. It's not your traditional Star Trek episode, and that contributes to make it cool. And I think, like, all of the performances are good. It's very well written. And it still explores, like, this outer world of the Cardassian situation, what's going on with them, and they kill her, which, like, honestly,
unexpected.
Yeah, no, we know it now.
Yeah, but at the time it was a big deal.
But yeah, no, it's like, oh my god, they did. It's kind of horrible to think that, like, she's the one that had the most complete arc because she comes from another episode. Like, boom. It's a good episode.
Yay!
It's good television stuff.
One last note I wanted to say was that, to kind of add on to Worf, that scene at the end is really cool too, where he comes to sit at the table with the others. And I just noticed how cool his sash is. Like, it's very it's very metal, and I wonder if it was really heavy or if it was made of it could have been made of plastic.
I forgot to say this.
What?
I forgot to say this. Oh my god. It's not important, but I noticed it. You talk about his sash, so I remember Ensign Ro and her earring. Ensign Zito doesn't have an earring.
I know.
And I was wondering if it's because I'm assuming not all Bajorans followed that faith.
Oh yeah, because she puts it on later when she's disguised as the
So,
as the prisoner.
is it because she was Starfleet and she was she was asked to take it off, or is it because she just doesn't follow that faith necessarily?
That's such a weird question, right? Because I think Worf's Klingon sash is definitely you can argue that it's like a cultural thing. He never served in the Klingon Navy as far as I know, so he didn't earn it's not a rank, right? Like he didn't earn
plus he didn't have the same stash in season 1, so he just replicated this one. He's like, I want a new one. I want a cool one.
I have earned a metal one. Yeah, it's like I'm badass now. Yeah, that was an interesting question. Maybe there's like there's a regulation about it, but that ship to ship you can make your decisions, because when Laren comes aboard, she originally asked to wear it, and Riker asked him to. I don't know why Worf gets away with so much. Is all. I can't. I don't know why. Why is it that he's allowed? Maybe
because he's the only Klingon on Starfleet.
It's true.
And it's like a diplomatic situation.
It's also interesting that Bajor is not a Federation world, but that Ensign Sito is Bajoran, and she's allowed to serve in Starfleet. So does that mean that you could...
Yes, there are plenty of Starfleet officers that are not from Federation worlds, and Nog is an example of that.
An example of one, that's true. Oh, that's true. That's cool that Starfleet lets you serve. Like, would Starfleet allow a Cardassian to openly serve if they defected from Cardassia?
I would think so.
That's interesting. See?
I would think so.
It's very interesting.
France has what they call the La Légion étrangère.
The Stranger Legion?
Basically,
the Legion of Strangers?
It's like it's the army of non-French people.
Oh, wow. So I can go and just join the French army.
If I don't understand all the technicalities.
I would love to be in the French army. I think I would find my husband in the French army.
The French Foreign Legion is what it's called.
You didn't even acknowledge what
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I said that I would join the French army because I said something silly to make you laugh. I said I would join the French army to find my husband there. You didn't even acknowledge it.
I didn't.
Awful.
I was
like,
I was focused. No, it's because I found the true translation. The French Foreign Legion is what it's called.
Oh, I knew about the French Foreign Legion, but I didn't realize that.
It's a military branch of the French army established in 1831. It is unique that it is open to foreign recruits who are willing to serve in the French armed forces. But apparently their training is really tough. Like really hardcore.
They're supposed to be really badass soldiers.
Mm.
It's true.
So for sure you can find a suitable husband. A suitable badass.
Is that what the Mako is now? Now we got to talk about Mako.
Oh my god.
What happens to Mako because they're not around in TOS or subsequent shows? I don't really remember. Did they resolve that in Enterprise?
No. They never talk about it, but they probably just eventually get shut down.
Because Star Trek
integrated into Starfleet, or
because Enterprise takes place.
The Earth Police.
Oh, they are a police force. Is that what they're?
No, they're a military force. They're like Earth military.
Because we don't have the Federation yet in Enterprise, but we do have Starfleet.
They have Starfleet, but it's like Earth Starfleet. It's not the big Federation stuff.
And so during Enterprise, it's just an alliance with the Vulcans and the Andorians.
Yeah, at the end, but there's nothing going on. There's no alliance in the beginning. It's more a power situation where the Vulcans are basically controlling humans.
Was there something in the last episode that Archer founds it, but has something to do with the founding of the United Federation of Planets,
yeah.
Or
we learned that Captain Archer is the one that founded or helped. He was the one that bridged relations between all of these three species of Vulcans.
So he's cool because he goes from being a explorer to a warrior to a diplomat in his arc in 4 seasons.
Everything.
That's
kind of cool.
He is pretty badass. It's true.
We haven't finished the
Absolutely.
show yet, but he is apparently Wife on the Tube's favorite captain for the moment.
Oh, the Doctor will appreciate that. I think the Doctor really loves Archer. Anyways, Sean, this was so
I
much
think
fun.
she's got a thing. I think she's got a thing for Bakula too.
How does that make you? How does that make you feel?
It's fine. She can run off with Bakula. I'll run off with Trip. I'm fine.
But Trip's already mine, so you have to fight me for him. So sorry, you're alone. You have to go for Malcolm. You're left with Malcolm
Fucking kidding
or
me?
T'Pol. You're left with Malcolm, T'Pol, or Hoshi.
Bloody hell.
That's it. Sorry.
That's
or the
not
Doctor.
fair. There's Travis
You
in
could
there.
have the Doctor if you want.
No, the Travis. No, I'd rather go with Travis.
He already has like 4 partners or 6 or 6.
Yeah, no, that's too much. I can't handle that.
Oh my, this degenerated really quickly. Anyways, audience, please ignore our silliness. But it is fun actually.
Share this podcast with your 3 wives, and have your 3 wives share this with their 3 husbands.
Are you watching the Tiger King, which is what everyone's talking about? Like, we're not gonna give it. I just want to know yes or no. Are you watching the Tiger King?
I have to leave. I will say no.
Okay, good. All right, promote anything you got to promote before you go?
My episode 9 and 10 review of Picard is on its way. I'm editing it as much as I can. And I will have more time to. I have more time to edit this week because I've still been doing 5 weekdays, no 5-day weeks. But now I'm not. I'm going to be working only 4 days because the situation.
Of the situation.
So yeah, more time to edit.
Speaking of the situation, we didn't talk about it, but audience, I really, really hope everyone out there is staying safe, and if it's affecting you, I just,
It's nice to not talk about it.
It is nice to not talk about it, but it is happening, and, just on a personal note, like...
No, we have to acknowledge. We have to
Yeah.
acknowledge. You can't just ignore it.
We spoke about this actually on Drug Space 9 too. How timely do we want these podcasts to be, and how timeless do we want them to be, right? And so that's a factor that comes into it. But this is a big thing. Anyways, we can't wait till your video, and I know that there's a Trek Chat coming up, and you're going to receive something special in the mail today, also, so that you'll be able to start promoting that. And yeah, for me, just again, wish you all well. Really appreciate everyone who listens and is tuning in, and we hope that this at least distracts you for a little while from any horrors that you might be experiencing in your life. All right, live long.
I say this in my upcoming video, but I'll say it again here, and I think this counts the same for you. Social isolation apparently can be like, I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine staying away from everyone in the world, but some people seem to struggle through it. And if you are struggling, just leave a comment. We'll talk to you. I mean,
we will talk to you, I promise.
I knew
I'll hold you
say
to that, Sean.
I knew that you'd say the same thing.
Yeah.
Because you're the same
100%.
thing as me. It's like, I love talking about basically anything, and if you just like talk about a topic, I'll talk about it. So just let's not talk about
we may
Discovery
piss you
Klingons,
off
maybe.
though. We might piss you off with our opinions, but we'll still
Yeah,
talk
nah,
to
it's all right. Just not Discovery Klingons. Let's just leave that be.
We got to do an epic opinion show at at some point.
Show.
The opinion show. It'll come. I'm concocting something in my mind. But next
Okay.
up for me is, and hopefully you'll be available, Sean, is I'd love to do a kind of wrap up discussion on the whole season of Star Trek Picard. But I personally am going to watch it again to see if any of those 10s fall down to 9s or 8s, and then
I don't think they will now. I think they will in 25 years.
That's a long time for you to wait for me to knock my ratings down.
To acknowledge.
Just to acknowledge some sort of truth that you think is underlying. But I'll give you that. I'll give you the possibility that can happen.
I will wait.
That's so funny. All right.
Patience.
Live long and prosper. And we'll see you next time. Oh, wait. Jolan True. I almost did the thing from Deep Space Nine, which is very similar.
This isn't...
Yeah, Jolan True, which is that one. We do that now too. I don't know why we do that, but we do it. All right, bye.